Hi, welcome to another writing workshop with the Creative Writing Meetup. My name is Laurel, and we meet weekly in AltspaceVR. You can find out more information at altvr.com, or you can check out our Discord channel at discord.me/writingvr. Now, we are a creative and supportive environment for writers. So if you would like you live in the virtual world, we would love to have you join us. And we write to prompts in the real world, and we share in VR, and we do workshops, writing workshops every other week or so. And we have some great ones coming up. So we'd love to have you join us. In this workshop, we explored some of the amazing things in this book called The Emotion Thesaurus, A Writer's Guide to Character Expression. Now, this is just a quick summary. We're going to highlight a few things in the book to introduce you to how it works, and we had a fantastic discussion on this. It was amazing. We're going to be doing these things again. On descriptive emotions, when you're writing the emotions of your character, how do you do that? What do you think about? What are the things to take into consideration? So join us as we explore this fabulous book. Honestly, I have 2 copies. One is in my office and one is in my house. I just pick it up and just to look at it once in a while, as well as when I'm really diving into my characters and tapping into those emotions to help me consider all the possibilities of how a character is feeling and then how to describe that. So we're talking about how to describe emotions. In the book, it separates out a whole variety of things when it comes to describing those emotions and helping you to tap in so that you can really, help the reader experience them with you. So in the book, we're only going to tackle these aspects of it: the emotional state and the verbal and nonverbal communication. It goes into greater depth on a variety of other things, which we will tackle in future workshops. In the emotional state, it looks at the mental responses, the internal responses, and the physical sensations and responses. The mental responses is what's going on inside the head of the character. The internal is how are they feeling inside their body, and the physical is how is that internal manifesting within their physical responses. Are they shaking? Are their eyes blinking? What's going on physically? Then verbal and nonverbal communication is really important. Is how are these emotions being related not only to the reader but to other people within the scene? How are they noticing how that character is feeling? We also have this layer that's beautifully discussed in the book about the different type groupings, the categorization of emotions. We have situational responses. So your character's in a situation, they're walking down the street and they watch a robbery or they watch a crime. They're going to respond differently from how they were feeling just a moment ago. The phone rings, they grab the phone, and suddenly news comes across. Their emotions going to shift and change based on the situation. Now, characters, like all good, fleshy, bloody creatures, have emotions that change throughout the day. They have moods, they have hormones. So they can wake up with one mood and they can end the day in another and have fluctuations throughout the day. And that needs to be taken in consideration because a good character is not a static character. They have ever-changing emotions. And stress. Oh, I love messing with our characters when it comes to stress because that's conflict, internal, external, fantastic. And emotions change based upon the stress that a character is under. They have different responses. So think about this as you're putting your characters together. How are they responding to situations, moods, and stress? When it comes to nonverbal emotion, it needs to be shown. So the book has some recommendations on this and talks about it because the reader can't read your mind. They can't read too much between the lines. They need to be shown. So some telling is involved in helping us see how the character is responding. Again, we like to show, not tell, but sometimes nonverbal emotion needs to be told in the process of showing us. Watch out for clichéd emotion. It's really easy to say that she had a shit-eating grin or, he was high as a kite. It's often considered lazy writing. But the book also suggests that if your character is a walking cliché, if everything they do and say and act and everything is a cliché, the odds are they're going to also think in a cliché. So this is kind of noir thing. Be careful with it, but maybe it's appropriate that those cliches work. And sometimes it's easy to get through an emotional state as you describe it to once in a while rely on those cliches, but try to avoid them because it really makes for boring writing. Watch out relying too much on just dialogue or just thoughts. Um, it it tends to be telling rather than showing. And if the characters consistently dealing with their emotions always in their head and not through conversation, not through dialogue, it gets boring. So just kind of, we need some action because even if they're talking too much or whatever, that conversation with a character as they're relating to others in the room and a scene and whatnot can be really boring or it can be way too much. And the point is lost. So watch out with a little too much of anything, is not a good thing, and have some variety as you help the characters respond. And a good example of that is backstory. I have actually read stories where every time there was an emotion in the room, a character went into their head and the reader was taken on a journey back into the past to find out how did they deal with similar situations in the past and what's all the whole history of why they feel this way. Boring. Okay, use this carefully. Sometimes you want the character to have that emotional state to explore their backstory to help flesh them out. But honestly, sometimes the reader just wants the character to stay in the present and deal with the present and deal with the history later. So play around with it. This is part of crafting. So think about how much backstory. Watch out for melodrama. Because remember, a character cannot stay in an emotional state consistently throughout the whole book. Sure, they can be angry, but there are different levels of angry. There's just plain pissed off, and then there's just about to murder somebody angry. There's about something to break something. Your characters, their emotions will ebb and flow, and sometimes even in the middle of a highly emotional state, they can be cold and calculating and not drowning in tears. So shift that up and down so that you're not just flooding the reader with nonstop emotion and allow some time. Just like your characters need to recover from their emotional state, allow time for the readers to catch up and to recover as well. It makes for a much more exciting read. But most of all, serve the imagination. Leave something for the reader to do because sometimes less is often more. Sometimes a little bit more is more helpful. But if you tell everything a character is feeling, you put in all that backstory, you put in all of that stuff, it's overwhelming. So leave some space in the words. Just give us enough to help the reader fill in those blanks too. It's a balancing act. In the book, I found this amazing example, and I want to share it with you because it makes all of our points, and we shared it in our workshop. Mr. Paxton's eyes were sad as he gave her the news. I'm sorry, Joanne, but your position with the company is no longer necessary. Instantly, Joanne was angrier than she'd ever been in her life. From just this paragraph, what do we know? What do we know about our characters? We know that Mr. Paxton's sad. He probably didn't want to give her the news. He used her first name. His is a Mr., hers is a first. So there's a relationship hierarchy going on here. So obviously he's the boss. He's Mr. Paxton. He's not Fred. He is not, George. He's not on a first name basis, but he's on a first name basis for her. So that's interesting. And then Joanne was angrier than she'd ever been in her life. Now, I don't know how angry she's been in her life, so I don't have a scale. But that's pretty pissed off. So obviously this is important to her. This moment is important. This is okay. This stands as it is. But let's take this a little further and read how the authors of the Emotion Thesaurus took this and expanded upon it. It's a great lesson. Joanne sat on the chair's edge, spine straight as a new pencil, and stared into Mr. Paxton's face. 16 years she'd given him, Days she was sick, days the kids were sick, making the trip back and forth across town on that sweaty bus. Now he wouldn't even look at her, just kept fiddling with her folder and rearranging the fancy knickknacks on the desk. Clearly, he didn't want to give her the news, but she wasn't about to make it easy for him. The vinyl of her purse crackled, and she lightened her grip on it. Her picture of the kids was still there, and she didn't want it erased. Mr. Paxton cleared his throat for the 100th time. Joanne, Mrs. Benson, it appears that your position with the company is no longer. Joanne jerked to her feet, sending her chair flying across the tile. It hit the wall with a satisfying bang as she stormed from the office. Oh, there's a lot going on here. Love it. So let's take this apart really quickly. I love looking, first of all, for things that stimulate the senses. So where are the senses being triggered here? So we have the sweaty bus. It's not an overcrowded bus. It's not an empty and lonely bus. It's a sweaty bus. That stimulates the senses. We have the crackle of the vinyl of her purse. Oh, lovely sound right there. We also have the throat clearing. We also have the chair hitting the wall with a bang. Not just any old bang. I mean, there could have been a thud. It could have been all of these things, but it was a satisfying bang. There was emotion wrapped up in that sound, and I love that satisfying bang. That's a great way to explain that sound. And it could have been hit the wall with a bang, but I love it that it was satisfying. It ties it right, that object right into the story. Right, that's part of this. It's part of the setting. I just love that. Now let's look at the deeper parts of this, of the character development. Joanne sat on the chair's edge. She didn't lean into it. She wasn't just kind of going, yeah, I'm here for just a little chat and just putting my feet up. She was sitting on the chair's edge. A great entrance to the scene. Spine straight as a new pencil. Now, this could be spine straight as an arrow. Cliche, but no, a new pencil. This is an office situation. So a new pencil tells us that they're using pencils. It sets a kind of a time, a date, a kind of time period that these people, or a bubble that these characters live in. They're using pencils, not keyboards and things like that. They're using a pencil, and a new pencil, not one of those blackened erasers and kind of, stubby done. She was straight as a new pencil. Love that. Better than the cliches. She stared into his face. She didn't look. She stared. Love that. 16 years. Now we have backstory. Not a lot, just enough. Days sick. Days with kids sick. Backstory. She has a family. Making the trip back and forth across town. She doesn't live near work. This is a sacrifice. She travels on a sweaty bus for some time period, back and forth across town. So we're starting to see the backstory of her life. We're starting to see her life. He wouldn't even look at her, just fiddling with the folder and rearranging the fancy knickknacks. And then telling. Clearly, he didn't want to give her the news. That's telling. But it's showing. But what's more important is the counter to that. She wasn't about to make it easy for him. This tells us that Joanne has spent those 16 years making life easier for him. And now it's his turn. Oh, I love that. Really powerful. Doesn't tell us, but in our heads, the reader gets that sense. Now it's his turn to make things, easy for her. She's going to suffer for what he's doing. The vinyl of her purse crackled, and she lightened her grip on it. Now this is really important. In the middle of an emotional state, where are her priorities? Her kids. Her kids are still important. Now, this could say she had kids, and she was very worried about what was going to happen next with her family and her kids, because she's about to lose her job. Her financial security is about to be threatened. But no, we get that is told to us, shown us by the fact that she remembers that the picture of her kids are in there and she doesn't want to erase, so she loosens up her grip on that. Love that. And then we have Mr. Paxson using her first name and then switching to a more formal name. Nice touch. He's now formalizing what he's about to say. He's distancing himself from the process. Then you have her response. She didn't stand, she jerks to her feet. She sends the chair flying. So we're interacting with the scene, using the scene to help get those emotions going on. We have that satisfying bang. She didn't walk out of the office. She didn't march out. She stormed from the office. Just a single word tells us she's angry. Nowhere in here does it say she was angry. Nowhere in here does it say he was nervous. It says, clearly paints that picture of how they felt. That's a great example. I don't know if I could come up with one better. Fantastic example that you will find in the book. So as you're looking through the character emotions, and we did this as an interactive workshop, we're going to do it right now, so you're welcome to join us, is first you need to identify what that catalyst emotion is. What's a root emotion? What is really at the base? And then look at the layers that are put upon that emotion. Use the settings, as you saw in the great example I just gave. There was the fiddling with the knickknacks. There was the chair. There was those helped us to use what's in the setting to express the emotions. And entrances and exits, great example where we arrive in the scene where she's sitting on the edge of the chair, not leaning back. That's a great entrance. And her exit of storming out, boy, it just set the whole tone. You knew how they felt just by how that was described. So I'm going to bring up some words that are found in the Emotion Thesaurus and talk about the physical signs, the mental responses, and then and the internal sensations, but also how they suppress the emotion. As just to explore the potential here. Now, the book covers many other responses to emotion. So get the book. So let's look at amazement. What are the physical signs, behaviors? If you want to do this on your own, you can hit pause now. And I want you to then look at the physical signs and behaviors of emotion, the internal sensations, the mental processes, and the signs that the emotion is being suppressed. So pause now. If you're going to continue on forward, let's talk about this like we did in our workshop. So the physical signs and behavior of amazement is the widening of the eyes, a slack mouth becoming suddenly still, sucking in a quick breath, taking a step back, eyebrows rising, speechlessness. These are just a few of the many, many different physical signs and behaviors. Now, what does the character feel inside, the internal sensations? A heart that seems to freeze and then pound. The sound of blood rushing in one's ears, a tingling skin, adrenaline, a dry mouth. What's going on inside the character's head, the mental responses? They momentarily forget whatever else is going on. They have a sense of giddiness, euphoria, the inability to find the words, and this really wonderful description here, wanting to share the experience with others. So they look around at others. This is very telling. Some characters, it's a total selfish experience, but other characters need to have that external confirmation. Are you amazed too? I'm amazed. If I'm amazed, are you amazed? Well, then I can be amazed because you're now amazed. So they need to have that external confirmation. Think about your character. How would they respond to this? And what are some signs the emotion is being suppressed? This was fascinating. The clasping one's hands and pressing them tightly to their chest so that they shove that emotion right down into the physical body, looking down on her way to hide their emotion, that expression. Eyes widening a bit before control is reasserted. The mouth snapping shut. Really interesting ways to suppress amazement. Think about your characters. How would they respond? Let's look at impatience. Impatience is a great way to have conflict with your character in a situation. They're impatient, so they want something to happen, and it ain't happening. It ain't moving forward. So physically, they scowl, they look around, or they tap their foot, or they tap their hands or their nails on the table. They're fiddling with their clothing in some way. They talk over others. They narrow their eyes. They have a sharp tone of voice. pinching the bridge of the nose and squeezing the eyes shut. What a great description of impatience. So what's going on inside the body? So often the body temperature rises. They feel exhausted and strained to the limits, often to the point of headaches. What's the mental? What are they thinking in their head? Okay, so I'm guilty of this. Impatience, patience and impatience, something I have struggled with personally. So this was really telling. They mentally berate a time waster. Oh, yeah. So have your character beat up in their head, beat up the person who's wasting their time. Um, Wishing that time would speed up, or running through how to do something faster or more efficiently. Just get that list out. How would I do this better? They can do this in their head. Really fun. I love that. Now, how do they suppress patience? A frozen smile. Oh, I love that one. Yes, I'll wait here. I'm fine. I have nothing else to do. Yeah, I love that. Going for a walk or running an errand, completing a task, and attempting to distract oneself to maintain their patience. In other words, going and doing something else because they're just not good about waiting and letting things happen. And I love this is a modern example is checking and rechecking the phone for messages. Great way to show impatience. So think about your characters and how do they express impatience? Pride. Let's flip through here. Where's pride? Pride, you think is easy, but there's some layers to pride that is really interesting. And there's some great words in here. Rage, remorse, and oh, I love these. This is a great thesaurus. So pride. So how do they physically manifest pride? So some of the physical signs is shoulders held back, chest thrust out, standing with a good posture, legs spread wide, gleam in one's eye, like that. Huge smile, shows a lot of teeth. Being generous with compliments. And having expansive movements. Those are great examples of pride. What are they feeling inside? The internal sensations. They feel taller, bigger, stronger. What's going on inside the head of your character? They have positive self-thoughts. They have preoccupation with their own success and their achievements and that feeling of being able to conquer the world and be surrounded by supportive loved ones. They need a cheering section. There's also a sense of entitlement, and often they're planning and seeking to take advantage of what has just happened to make them feel prideful. Again, what's your character's motivation and personality and your character's character? How would they choose to respond to this? Now, the signs that the emotion is being suppressed is they wave off the compliments and pass the credit on to someone else so they can turn the attention away from themselves. Or they're seeking others' opinions as a form of validation. Fascinating. This is such a really, you need this on your shelf. Am I overselling the book? I hope so, because it's really essential. Paranoia. Now, I want you to remember, which you already know, paranoia is a mental illness. It is also a mental state, and it's also a temporary situational response to the world around them. So you have people who are persistently paranoia and requires chemical and therapy and treatment, but paranoia is also really helpful. It is very important to stay alive. That's how we've kept our species going, is because we're just enough paranoid to stay safe. So use this carefully. So what are the physical signs and behaviors? Clenching the jaw, flinching, fidgety hands, eyes that don't seem to blink very often, or bloodshot eyes. That's a little long-term paranoia. Sweating, scouting for exits when they enter a room. Always looking over the shoulder around the next corner. Great examples. Easily becoming offended and jumping to the defensive immediately. Internal sensations, fatigue. Paranoia is exhausting. Muscles that are always tense, ready to fight or run. Acute sensitivity to touch and sound. Paranoia is exhausting. It takes a toll on the body. It's fight and flight going with adrenaline at full bore. You need to, you know, you're going to have a real tired character with raw nerves and real sensitive skin and just sensitive to everything. The mental responses, seeing danger in everything around them, judging too quickly, believing that always everyone has a hidden agenda or motive. A heightened sense of self importance. The world revolves around them and the world is coming after them. Serious mental fatigue because they're often not getting enough sleep. The inability to connect with others due to a lack of trust. Oh, that's powerful. Oh, I already want to start writing some characters that have paranoia. Negative thought patterns, feeling watched or followed. And I love these two. The belief that everyone else is deluded. Everyone else is crazy. I'm the only one sane in the room. How could you even possibly think that? Because it doesn't make any sense in a real world. Well, in that world, it doesn't. But in the real world, and adhering to superstitious beliefs to stay safe. I think those are pretty profound descriptions of what's going on inside their head. Now, what does it look like when a paranoia is suppressed? Avoidance of social situations or attempting to engage socially, but with wary, darting eyes while agreeing with everything, so they seem a part of the group. They study the group so they know how to behave, to act. How do I act normal when I know they're all out to get me? I need to blend in. Oh, I love that. See, I want to start writing about these things and using medicine and seeking therapy. So great. We had so much fun with this. You can tell. So again, in quick summary, look for the emotional state, the mental responses, the internal sensations, and those physical sensations, so you can describe those and make those be a part to help us see and feel how the character's feeling. Watch out for that verbal and nonverbal communication so everyone in the room can kind of, if another character is looking at another character, they need to be able to see that. So you're going to need to tell to a point the reader and the other characters noticing these things. Be aware, again, emotions fluctuate. You have emotions that are related to situational responses, to moods, and to stress. And take those into account so you have a full-bodied character. So I'm sure you have some questions, you have some answers. Please get the book. Really recommend the Emotion Thesaurus, a writer's guide to character expression. Second edition is amazing. And if you'd like to join us in our Discord channel and in VR, we would love to have you join us. So you can find out when our meetings are at altvr.com, at AltspaceVR, where we meet in the virtual reality, and also on Discord at discord.me/writingvr. We would love to have you join us, whether you join us in VR or in 2D on your computer or laptop with that really good headset with a microphone. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.